Okay, let's start. Seems like my webcam is upside down. Okay, now it's good. Had nephew on the computer today, so that was probably because of that. Okay, so let's start. I'll take also this my usual MTT here. Here defend with the Queen 10. I will also probably take today a free roll from the poker stars. I think there was today some sort of poker strategy free roll related to V-Cup ticket, so at least if I remember my code for the stars, it actually went correct. King Jack we can, I don't mind calling necessarily, but I think 3-betting will be more profitable usually. This is actually kind of interesting flop. We have 3-bet pot, so I think I actually start by checking here. We don't have much of protection with our Jack as support, but once he checks behind, we most often have the best hand, so let's go for the value/protection. And I think we can make sort of thin value bet again, but I think I don't want to shove here because it's going to be tough to call. But if he shoves over my bet here, I think we have to call. We have kind of under a hand, and we block some straight combos and so on, and 2 pair combos obviously. No, I don't know what happened on the stars client. It just decided to shut down. Well, that's one way to work. Wow. Do we have something? Some process is still running for the stars or what? Well, I don't see anything here. No idea. Kind of interesting flop with the deuces. We have best hand decently often. I think we can go for thin sort of value/protection against a high, some random 2 cards. Like if he folds King Jack, it's quite kind of nice outcome. Well, I really don't know what is going on with the. Let's start again. Maybe it starts now. And we are offered new 3-bet situation. We can easily 3-bet fold this one if Villain happens to 4-bet. This is actually again kind of situation that I think I start by checking. I want to have some AXs in my check range. And basically the weakest ones are usually the most sensible, or like checking pocket aces would be really good as well, because then we would block so many of the AXs, but it's kind of tough to be folding here. Also we are against some unknown guy, so it's totally plausible that he's overplaying some weaker AX. I would just shove the jacks here on the pretty standard. And he had better. But yeah, I think when we start by checking, we kind of have to call it down without any reads overall. Well, I don't know, Star's client just doesn't start, period. So maybe I'm not going to play that free roll. Well, this guy basically offers us free possibility to draw, so let's take it, and if he bets again really small, I will be calling again. I don't actually mind just folding this king 9, because he had some showdown value. This guy 3-bets. These are always kind of awkward spots with the ace queen, because you kind of don't want to shove, but I think flatting is a decent option when we have position against the 3-betting guy. And I think here we just want to bet and protect our equity. So if he check shoves, we have to stack off, I suppose. I think in general calling 3-bets is something you don't want to do too much, but and that sort of situation is kind of most sensible ones, because small blind range is going to be widened. Yeah, I don't know. I can't see any processes for PokerStars, and well, after all, it does start, but for some reason it just shut down right away. So yeah, I'm not going to play that. Free roll 10, I suppose. I suppose ace-7 is something that we can consider c-betting. So I think it's kind of close. But maybe we get enough fold equity on. Well, it's kind of a drawy flop, but in a way also not that drawy, considering that small blind range shouldn't have too much stuff. But this is one of the problems, like it's kind of a scare card, so of course we can see the barrel here again, but we don't have any equity. He can have some king x's as well, so, and of course flush, so I think I just give up here. I think just giving up or trying to check the showdown from the flop would have been a pretty solid option as well. Usually I would barrel here if I had any sort of, like if I had ace-10 for example, I don't mind barreling, because at least we have some gutshot as support at that point. So yeah, I haven't used PokerStars client in a moment. It asked for update. I did that. I actually got logged in, I think, but when I logged in, it showed some pop-up over the lobby, and that didn't show anything. I waited for a moment, then clicked the X to close that pop-up, and snaps, whole client went down, and now it doesn't even go into login screen anymore. Well, Jackdaw is quite not enough. I think it's quite close, I suppose, in the NES, but and then 4 I will be open showing if possible. I have always thought that Stars is at least stable client, but I don't know, maybe something went wrong in the update or something. Quite surprising that the hijack is slip folding here on the upper right. Well, king 9 we definitely want to defend, and if he makes some smallish c-bet we can float. I think this is kind of close. That do we want to just check back? I think I just check back here because we have some showdown value anyway. I don't hate idea to bet flop, bet turn. But yeah, I think we don't necessarily want to turn that one into bluff. Do we get another limp fold? I would think that the guy at least gets annoyed or something. Well, we run into nuts, but luckily spiked the ace here. And we are back in the game. This guy decided to totally spew his remaining chips. He doesn't really have any fold equity against this guy, I would think so. And hand is crappy. So yeah, if you have read my poker strategy blog, I have talked about. I think we want to just 3-bet here. I think I go for kind of smallish sizing. We can still fold against the blind if they shove, but obviously stacking off against this guy. And if he calls, we are kind of committed to pretty much any flop. And looking pretty bad here. But yeah, it's pretty standard considering he had like 12 pp or so. Folding would be pretty tight, and I don't know, flatting would be kind of weird, I suppose. In the upper right, we can shove, I don't mind that, but I think also flatting here is quite decent option when we have bit over 20 big blind and in position. Kind of interesting flop. I think we have to call here one bet, because we so rarely have the AX obviously, or pocket pairs either, so this is kind of top of our range. But if he barrels, I would just fold. And I don't really see any point in betting. I mean, if he has pocket pair, it's going to be tough to get it fold. Most likely, so just trying to get into showdown. And unfortunately he had it, but we still had 6 outs. This MTT spot, I suppose, is kind of close. We can probably still give up, but I think in the Nash that's going to be a calling hand with the antes. But I don't think it's like super plus EV anyway, and in here ace-8 is just too strong to be folded. Well, we have some outs, but no luck. Well, as classic, my MTTs don't go too hot. But let's rebuy again. We still have over 20 big blind, so it's kind of okay stack depth to still rebuy. Nine of 5 is not much of a hand, but I think we can still defend against this min raise. This is actually a hand that if he c-bets we can try to raise and fold, and if he checks I will go for the bet. It's kind of a nice hand to raise against the c-bet, because then we have some equity, but if we face 3-bet we have absolutely no problem to just fold it. Queen jack suited, I would ship it here on the top left, but this guy raises. I think he was, if I don't remember wrong, he was that limper guy. Yeah, I think I just fold here. He might also bet like ace queen, ace king type of hand that is anyway ahead of me. Maybe sometimes he has like king queen or something. Queen 6 suited, definitely open shove hand. So yeah, I was talking about that I brought in my poker strategy blog, that I think about making some tutorial type of videos. I think someone gave the idea earlier also on the on the chat in here in the stream some weeks, months ago, I don't know. But anyway, there was some demand anyway on the forums, so I talked about making about PT4 positional report, some sort of. It's probably going to be pretty short, like 10-15 minutes. Tutorial on how to create the report and how to customize it for anyone's need. Basically, you just add different sort of statistics on it and build one for whatever the need is. And in the outside table, this is kind of scary looking, but I don't think I can fold here. I open raise 2 players code, I see bet flop, I double barrel the turn. I'm not too happy about the situation, but I think I just have to get it in here. Queen deuce, so Jesus. Hopefully we spike something. Oh well. Yep. I was mainly more worried about queen jack or some set basically, and it's kind of a, I mean, pocket queens or jacks would often 3-bet pre-flop, so I think we can't fold it here, but didn't really think about queen deuce, have to be honest. As Will Lane should never ever have that sort of hands, but that's the kind of problem of with the random fizzy players, that they can show up with a lot of stuff they never should have. But that's also the side that often give you value and the possibility that they overplay one pair hands and so on. And flipping on the top right, seems like we doubled up. And 9-10, super easy shove. And in general, in these like 6 big blind, 7 big blind versus blind spots, especially if you think that the villain is kind of recreational or tight player, you can argue about basically shoving any 2 in a lot of situations, because often people tend to be somewhat tight. In the outside table, I see that flop check, turn goes check check. I think I go for sort of smallish value bet here against 9x and shots. Well, not the greatest flop, but let's try to see bet it down. I mean, big blind can have a lot of stuff that doesn't connect here. And I should have limp gold here on the top left. It might be good on the bottom right, but it's kind of impossible to be calling if the villain bets any reasonable amount. I mean, we block hand like queen 10 that we would definitely want the villain to have. We don't block flush combos. Of course, those are rare, but he can be value betting any king X basically. So he has a ton of value hands here. But it's kind of tricky, like you can obviously check the flop, but how happy you are going to be calling against turn bet. And I think just folding turn is going to be kind of nitty. Oh well, ace-7 on the bottom left is actually kind of awkward situation because of our stack depth. I think I just have to shove here and hope for the best with my like 6 big blind, 7 big blind. He can definitely still be raise calling weaker hands. And I think we actually split that one. And upper right, obvious shoving spot. And kind of interesting spot here, I c-bet flop. I called pre-flop raise against villain from position, c-bet flop, and I think I will go for here, kind of big side, or decently big. It's kind of scare card most of his range, and we still have the great gutshots in our pocket as a tiny bit of equity most of the time. But the main thing is that usually when people take sort of check calling line on the flop, they tend to have quite capped range and quite rarely have flush draws here. So if the top of the villain range is going to be like weak top pair or something like that, or like mediocre top pair, our turn bets should have a lot of success. Of course, he can have some like second pair or like pocket queens with the queen of diamonds that probably doesn't fold, but those are still going to be kind of smallish portion of their range. So in these top situations you definitely want to think about like I think I just go for open shove here. You want to think about villain range definitely. For example, my hand here, it's not great in a way. We don't have flush blocker or flush outs, so it's not like the hand itself is not really that great. On the top bottom we have some fold equity. Villain can probably sometimes go with weaker hand, and we have 10 big blinds, so I think I just go for the shove. But this time he had the nuts, or kind of nuts. And we probably need suck out on the top right as well. And luckily it's not straight on the top left for the villain. Okay, we really need suck out. Pocket aces. I decided to shove because like if I min raise this small blind shove, I think we kind of have to call. Though I don't love the situation that much, but we have so much equity in general that we kind of have to go with it, and by shoving we force the big blind maximum pressure here. I think I fold here because this guy seems to be sitting out, so if he stays sitting out we can shove pretty wide here. So normally I would definitely not shove, and of course he comes back right away. But luckily it goes through. And then check suited, I just have to call here. We are so even stacked, and or not even stacked, but I mean he's my direct opponent as well, so just mandatory call. And king jack suited, I will go for open shove. I wouldn't be shoving that much here overall, but that hand is just too strong to be folded or like limp folded. And top left, I think I will call with the king 7. Well, it's pretty marginal, but I think this guy has been quite actively shoving as well, so he might have relatively wide range. Till this time he has crappy ace that wins. Well, that free roll that I didn't get to play, it's not huge loss. I mean, I think it had like, I don't know how many players it would have got, but there was 30 tickets. Of course, only I think top 3 got like $55. $55 ticket, and then there was like $11 for the big chunk of players, and the bottom got some $5 or something like that, if I remember right. 6-7 we can try to limp, we can min raise. Shoving is kind of last option, or I suppose, I don't know if I have option to shove or fold. That's kind of close, I suppose. Well, it's probably fold at that point. Bottom left we can actually raise here. We are quite high. Calling is totally fine as well, but I think it's fine to raise also. But we have to stack off if we raise. Seven, 6 shooter. This is hand we can definitely consider about shoving, but I think in this stack setup I probably prefer folding in usually a little bit more. And we have the value bet here on the top right with the straight, even though it's not the top straight, but still too strong to be checked after that action. I was a bit worried about him min raising with that stack depth, but yeah, running into aces is kind of awkward. This guy might be one that we don't want to limp that much against as necessarily with 2 balanced range, but he actually raises here. I have just got kind of passive limit. Okay, of course he has the better hand. How many aces and kings he got? Like the last 10 hands or something, like 3 or 4 or something. Just absurd. Just absurd. Let's go for the open shove in the top left. We could also limp. I don't mind either way. 4-way pot. Do we want to try to bluff? I think when they checked flopped, it will decrease so much of the AX department that we probably want to try to bluff anyway. But yeah, that was one shitty card. Actually checked here on the upper right. I should have probably c-bet, but well, let's go for delayed c-bet. I don't think I have too much showdown value with the king high, to be honest. Pocket queens is strong enough that we can try to induce on the top left. Obviously I'm not doing much of light raises in this situation. Wow. Sometimes card distribution can be pretty cruel. On the bottom left, I don't mind checking either. I think that's totally fine option, and this is one of the reasons we lane calls, and most of the time we are going to be in this sort of situation, but that is actually kind of bad flop overall as well, because usually limp calling range will hit quite easily to check them. Jack 10 flops. On the bottom right in the MTT, I think I just go for open shove with the antes. We can min raise as well, but if I had even tiny bit more stack, I would min raise, but I think we can just shove quite nicely as well. On the bottom left, I think I have best hand quite often, but is there value in betting? No, he had 10. And we double up on the MTT. Now we actually have €25 already, so it will probably start in a moment. So how is the stream? Well, actually I have 0 drop frames so far, so it should be flawless pretty much from the quality side. I'm just calling king queen suited. We don't really want to 3-bet and face 4-bet, so especially with this stack depth. Well, I suppose if we 3-bet and do face 4-bet, we would have to call at that point with the pot odds. And against that really small 3-bet, definitely calling, and we have to stack off tier. I think even if this guy comes along, we have like bit over pot size, so I can't really fold, I think. This guy's once again 3-betting me. I think I go for liked 4-bet. He has been 3-betting me absurd frequency. Well, I think I just check here. Yeah, I think he has the king X decently often, and he's not folding that one. So we want here, I don't know what they had, but queen jack, king jack. Well, that went quite perfectly, dominating both of the villains. Yeah, I will limp take 8 queen. I don't really. Shoving might be plus EV, but. And yeah, I went for check call because I have tiny bit of or some showdown value with the queen, and when it's free flop, this flop will favor villain quite heavily. And I mean, I think I kind of have to call on the bottom right. Problem is that he can have some 2 pairs as well. But how often will I have anything better here? And there are some busted draws anyway, so. And he had the 2 pair. So yeah, not that great situation, but unfortunate river. Spade, and we at least win the pot. 7 we win the pot. 8 we probably can fold, so it's kind of only cards that only improvement that we end up losing chips here. The outer table, I check flop here because I don't have much, but I think we can rep a lot of king X here once Once we'll then check the turn as well. Oh, he calls, so yeah, this is just time to give up. Well, let's see what he had. Just ace-9. Well, he had hearts, so I suppose that's reasonable. Reasonable line. On the top left, I want to have some of the king X's usually in my range, so I think I check that weakest possible kicker one. So by checking this sort of hand, sometimes we can balance out those times we have like some sort of pocket pair or a high that we decide to check back. And it's actually kind of thin because he can have, but I think I go for small bet here and fold if he shoves. You can still get like 9x, 4x sometimes to call. Yeah, of course he might be bluffing sometimes with like some busted draw, but I think it's pretty rare. Yeah, I don't mind checking the river either. I think it's kind of thin side to back value bet when the river pairs the 8 here. And yeah, I should probably tighten on the top right because we have that 3-bet matching on the left. Of course he doesn't 3-bet now. Well, someone does. I think I just flat here and hope that we get. So I think this guy is somewhat tricky, so I mean if I shove he's going to fold anyway, practically always. So I think king 3 is actually kind of reasonable to shove here. We are not huge amount of time dominated, we have suited hand. And unfortunately we don't hit anything. Yeah, that was end of the MTT. This guy is 3.5 big blind open raising, and we have so shallow stacks that I don't think calling will be making profit overall. I would like to call here on the top left with a bit deeper stack, but I think one of the issues with this sort of stack depth is that we don't really have that much implied odds, and if we hit some sort of pair, we are kind of forced to stack off, or at least, well, of course it depends on the flop, but. Like if it's ace king 8, then obviously one pair, bottom pair is not going to be greatest holding, but if it's like Jack 8-5 or something, then it's going to be kind of questionable to be giving up with small stack depth. Those ace-8 we still want to open and hope that the bottom is not going to attack, at least. So as default, I'm going to open really wide in the late positions, like bottom cutoff, as people have probably noticed. And well, this one I will just check back because he has so much strong hands. So much strong hands here on this flop from the small blind. Do we try to bluff here? I think we can try. We can value bet like most of the King X type of hands here and so on, but Will Lane didn't believe and it makes really stupid pre-flop call, it seems. Interesting flop. Well, we are quite deep, so I think I just go for the half pot and just hope. I was thinking about just checking, but this guy is probably not the aggro type anyway, so it's going to be better to just do the work myself, I suppose, and set in here as well. Wow. That is so awesome played. I have to applaud for it. Wow. Jesus. Guy has the worst possible top pair and he goes for huge check, so yeah. That's how you do it. That's how you do it. And we get the nuts here. I mean, I would just shove here. He probably has decent hand quite a lot of time. And there are a lot of awkward cards if he has something decent. Like for example that river might have shut down the Will Lane. Even if he has like two pairs. Ace-9, I'm kind of high on my range, but his sizing is quite big. I don't have any diamond myself. And I'm a bit worried that he's going to barrel quite a lot, so I think I just give up. Even though it feels kind of nitty possibly, but my chances to improve here are so slim. And yeah, I start by raising quite wide. Let's see if he continues. Of course, he has been aggro earlier, so I suppose there is decent possibility that he remains aggro in the heads up also. And that is like the best possible turn, I suppose. And he can definitely have some playing high card hands, so I think we just have to barrel here. Let's hope that he doesn't check shove or something. I think ace-8 shooters, this guy has somewhat capped range usually. Ace-8 off I would definitely fold, but I think shooter we can go with. And straight on the board. Almost got it. And that is one shitty flop on the upper right. Let's make raise on the top left. We have such a stack set up that I want to try and put a lot of pressure. I think I call here again. I was thinking about if the club comes that I will donk bet. So we might sometimes have the best hand still on the turn. Though of course not huge amount of time, but this time we had. Ace-4. These are kind of tricky situations, but I suppose I prefer shoving as default. The main issue is that people can make way too wide raise calls as middle stack, so even though it's kind of nice that we have the blockers here, there is the danger that he's going to raise call like ace-10 type of hand and so on, which is the somewhat of issue. And on the bottom right, I think I go for small value bet. I should have the best hand really often. And I have to call here, of course. We don't have. I was thinking about shoving, but I mean, how much fold equity we really have, so I think I prefer just calling, and I should have c-bet here. Well, be balanced. I don't mind against some if we had some sort of aggro read or something, but yeah, against this guy we should definitely be betting ourselves. There's some merit in shoving, obviously, but does he? I will go for the shove. He might even. I'm just a bit worried that, like, if he has the queen x, he's just going to be calling my raise and not raising himself often enough. And he might sometimes, like, snap off with the 8x anyway. Who knows? Who knows? Shoving wouldn't be horrible on top left, but I think I prefer limping perhaps a little bit. Let's go for value bet and with the idea to check on the bottom right. I mean, with the small sizing we probably can get enough weaker stuff to call. And on the heads up, this is again kind of flop that I don't see too much good in betting. I mean, I don't really get many better hands to fold anyway. So I think I just prefer checking, and of course, this guy is aggro, but this is quite close on the bottom right. But I mean, this guy is shoving 12 pp. And this guy shoves 25 big blind ISO, so I think we can hold that one. Well, if I had like queen of club here, I would probably go for bluff raise, but I just can't get any action for the big hand. On the bottom right, we can also check back. Check back that flop. The main issue of betting is basically that if the villain check raise, it ends up in kind of nasty situation because we shouldn't be beating much, if any, of his value range and so on. I was going to double barrel here. I think I will float anyway. This is really aggro guy, so I would kind of think about shoving here with my flush blocker. Let's try to spew. Okay, here's straight. I was thinking that he might have some two pairs and maybe some bluffs, but yeah. Maybe that was bad idea. It's just that he has been so aggro that I think we can get some decently often through that one. And we can check raise, but it's quite dry flop on the top right, and the villain is aggro, so I prefer calling and trying to allow him to bluff. Of course, we can't really give up that one. We are so high in our range still. I suppose here, if I call, here is going to be 4,000. We have 1,700. I suppose it's kind of close. Do we want to shove or just call? But yeah, as we saw here, he has quite a lot of barrel hands. On the top left, we can use this card as donk bet. We can get usually some of the better hands to fold, and we don't get as often in weird situation where we kind of have to fold against sizable turn bets. But yeah, this guy in the heads up has been extremely passive against my limping. I think he hasn't raised me a single time. And queen 3 is not quite strong enough, even though it's suited. The bottom left I will go for open shove, kind of stack depth and position that. I prefer to do that and not get shoved. Maybe he now shoves after I said he's passive, but no, he doesn't. Just check folding on the top bottom left. We have quite a lot of some AXs, some 10Xs, so I don't see too much point in. Check calling that one. Quite surprising that he doesn't bet ace jack anymore. It should be like next to always the best hand. We'll lane min raising here with this stack depth. I suppose we can still just call and play accordingly what comes. And with this stack depth, I think we can just want to probably check shove and hope for best. And we can value bet at 10x on the bottom right. He shouldn't really have better hand next to. We should be ahead almost always here. And 9-10 is kind of nice hand, but with lane 4xing makes it bit awkward. But I think we still have to call, I think. And unfortunately losing the flipped here. And I'm going to bet here, decently sizable bet, as I would do with the value hands. Of course, I don't have the value hands that often. Well, luckily we won the next flip. On the upper right, I decided to check the turn to balance my checking range somewhat, so I have some solid hands in here, and I can basically value bet pretty much any river anyway. And pocket trees is going to be mandatory shove. Hopefully he folds. And ace-7 shooter is actually kind of interesting. I think we can shove. I don't really like min raise that much. Limping would be one option, but I think I just prefer shoving as default. And this time we have the trips, so kind of similar situation to earlier one, that this card favors our range quite a bit. So let's donk bet again. Now I would not have wanted to fold, but anyway. And we just can't end that heads up. One of these never-ending ones. Queen deuce. It's up to 5.6 big blind in the Nash. So pretty close one. I mean, with the antes, I don't mind it either way, really. Deuce. Thank you. Easy one. On the top left, this is again kind of. I don't mind check shoving basically, but it's still going to be kind of. I think I prefer calling. We have the jack, so it will give some playability. Here. And I think h7 is not going to be. Well, it's quite close again, but. Kind of awkward situation. We'll lane double barreling that. I think it looks really strong. If I call, it's going to be like half pot on the river. Kind of awkward situation coming. I don't know, I just knit it up here. The issue is that we are not really going to improve our hand unless we hit the 8th here, relatively wise. Oh Jesus. Well, 8 jack is going to be hands that we can't be folding. Way too good. Of course behind, but way too good anyway. And king jack, if we raise here we have to stack off, that's the main point. Raise folding would be pretty absurd, but it's actually kind of borderline. King 10 I would often just check it here and go for the flop. Well, let's check, maybe we somehow lost that one, so I suppose he hit the 10th here. Oh well. Do we want to bluff here? Well, I don't know, we have some showdown value with the king high. Let's limp the kings. And ace doesn't really matter too much in this spot. Unless Villen has like 3-5. Pretty interesting move. I suppose he was representing the 3-5, but I would have just called in his shoes. I mean, he's still beating my semi-bluff hands here with the bottom pair with the gutsshot, so I think it would have been most sensible to just... Here I would just go for check raise, one overcard, flush draw. And we are way ahead, and well, Jesus. Quite a bullshit. And we have this passive calling matching guy, so I'm not going to get tricky here with this full house. Just bet big, he's going to call anyway, I should think. Then next calls, flush calls. But he had something else probably. I think I have way too many 25 euro in registration currently, so let's pick some 10 euro. And actually I don't have 50 euro at all, so let's pick that on the other screen. I might sometimes see it here, but we have this bottom guy who doesn't like folding, so let's just take the check line. We might sometimes win with the king jack high. Not too often, but once in a blue moon. Egg 9, pretty close, 9-10, I would definitely shove. I think we can go either way with that one. Pretty cruel on that heads up, king 6 suited. Losing to 7-6. A live hand, but we can't make it. Well, at least we are hitting sets, if nothing else. I think I go for ISO 3-bet here. And flopping the top set is kind of nice. We could check as well, but it's pretty deep stacked situation, so I often tend to go for the betting line here. And I mean, plugging 8x is not too relevant really. He shouldn't have that many of those anyway. On the bottom right, there is some merit in making like small c-bets, but yeah, I think we just have to fold it here. And 3 callers, I mean 2 callers behind us, I suppose. The top bottom right, do we want to just call here to keep his range wider, or yeah, he might have sometimes the straight, but obviously we have a bit over pot sized here on the river, so I will be just shoving here. So this does look some sort of blocker bet with maybe some queen jack or something. And don't have much here on the upper right, but well, this actually run out that I will try to bluff. Okay, that didn't work. I mean, I would often see bet small here on the flop with lot of the AX as well, because Win lane most of the time doesn't really have anything, so we can deny some equity and kind of thin value bet at the same time. Well, king was kind of crappy one on the top right. I think this guy probably calls with most of his draws anyway with these pot odds, so he basically shouldn't be calling most of them, but it's quite common that I wouldn't be surprised if he had called like 7-6 of diamond or something. I should have probably bluffed here on the bottom, top left on the turn. But let's try to make cheap bluff on the river. Quite cheap. Well, not really that great of hand to be calling in a way that we block queen jack type of hand, but yeah. Well, I suppose it's quite thin. I don't know if he would bet 9x on the turn anyway. And he can definitely have sometimes some trapping stuff here as well. Pretty tough to get weaker hands to call, even if I think I will have the best hand mainly. I think I just check back here on the bottom left. That way we can get him to bluff sometimes if he was floating with something. And we can anyway bet the river for value, and I mean going for bet turn shove river line would probably be a bit ambitious here, to be honest. Well, this is kind of reasonable bluff combo. Of course, if he has the AX, it's going to be tough to get him to fold. The good side of this combo is that we still have the gut shot. If the flush draw completes, we can actually think about triple barreling with flush blocker and actually try to get those decent AX and to fold. A bit worried on the bottom left that I think this guy had been quite aggro, but at the same time this G-Dog probably next to never 3-bet, so I don't know. I think this guy has been at least once 3-betting me. It's often kind of hard to remember. I think with this stack depth I will just go for shove here. We might get sometimes some king high or whatever to fold. Or some equity anyway. And I mean, if I called here and he decided to bet big on the turn, we are actually forced to fold. Kind of awkward to open with a queen 9 here, because if the big blind shoves, we can't really call. And ace king, obviously we are calling, and 9-8 I will defend. And on the top left, this is like one of those totally unnecessary 3-bet shoves when you have clear calling hand and go for the shove for no reason. And on the top right, I will just try to check the showdown, but the lane doesn't comply. On the bottom right, we are now a bit deeper. Also, I covered this small blind. It doesn't matter hugely, but anyway. And let's try in the bottom right to increase our gap, but we might lose this one. If he defends sort of tight, I think we might be able to take the pot down here often enough. But yeah. Ace deuce is actually kind of close. I think I will still prefer just min-raise folding. And king queen suited, I can raise call against these guys. Well, I don't think the button will shove anyway, but if he happens, and top right, I will shove. I think I can't really fold tears, although it's not like awesome situation either, but and we hit the set and still lose. And we lose that one as well. One of these sessions. On the bottom right, I don't actually mind to check back again. Sometimes with the queen, we can then have some balance for the checking range as well. So we have basically some super clear calling hand on any river pretty much. I'm just trying to check the showdown. We have some showdown value. Min bet. Of course the price is good, but well, it's kind of weird. Could we be good with the queen high? Well, and yeah, I defended here and called against the, or it was linked actually. Yeah, I will just shove. I need some protection. He has some act he's probably calling, and seems like weaker as well. And luckily split pot. Split pot on the top right. H6 with 5 or 6 big blind, I think I will go with it. And in the heads up, go for some pressure, and I think I shove here. Here we have kind of decent hand for it. I mean, if he has like some 8x for example, it's pretty tough to be calling. Well, this time we didn't run into some uber nuts. Well, he had absurd amount of outs here. Well, kind of a short stack situation in the bottom left, but it was still over pot size on the flop effective stacks, so didn't want to really c-bet and then face the shove and so on. And we double up on the top left and catch aces, but we are kind of, I think I just shove here this one as well. We can of course limp and hope he does something, but with repeater stack I would have used the limp often. I think it's fine here as well, but just that I tend to have so little of limping ranged here. Of course, you can argue if balancing does have any merit here, but he probably expects that I will be wide, so even if I block the AX, it should be fine anyway. Pocket 7 is really close here. We have still 3 people behind also. I think I will fold here, but it's really close, like pocket 8s. I would probably, I don't know, maybe shove. Well, top left would have been snap call. And this guy open raising 3.5 big blind. And yeah, limp folding a crappy ace here on the bottom right, but when the villain makes it 3.5 pp, I think calling is just going to be, just tends to be losing play overall. Because we are so often going to be missing the flop, and then we have a high with most likely minimal possibility to improve. Well, on the bottom right you can open raise ace-4. It has to fold against everyone, but it's not bad hand, but I don't think folding is absurd either. The top left I would go for min raise fold. And yeah, we have combo draw on the bottom left, but it's kind of crappy combo draw. So yeah, I think I just fold. Hitting 10, we will have the idiot end straight, and we are also drawing for quite low flush. And also the bet sizing was big, so not really good spot. And obviously priced in on the bottom left. Unfortunate that big blind wakes up with monster. And big stack closest here. A6 a smaller stack I will go with, but we can make non-all-in plate here. So that if the small blind shove, big blind call, we can still get away and hopefully get into cash. min raising. Well, I suppose we can just flat here as well and hope there is no a high flop at least, and balance our calling range, because we can definitely have good amount of calls against the min raise. Well, he was trapping, fortunately not with the aces. Well, 7 queen is going to be enough on the top left. Let's make reorganizing again. Tables might change to a bit different locations. I think that would be nice change on that function, that it would aim to have the same order then when you do use that. Really dry flop on the top left. We have some backdoor stuff going on, so let's just see bet. And 3-bet stacking off on the bottom left, so I don't really love the situation if I face 4-bet shove. Jack 8. I think we don't have to shove that one. And getting action on the outside table. If this guy calls, we can maybe fold, but scary. Scary turn. And not the turn we wanted, so obviously now checking and checking river unless we improve the full house. But yeah, I mean, basically we are hoping if we call here that he turns like 5x or something like that into bluff, but I think he has way too many flushes here to call without flush ourselves. Snap shove against the limp. Queen 8 I have to call if he shoved here. Well, Queen 7, I think it would have been somewhat on the weak side. Well, let's try again. Well, that is kind of nice scare card. So I will try to barrel and get some weak pairs and shots to fold. This guy actually raised gold with that. Well, I suppose this is one of the best runouts overall. Bluff, so let's go for it. At least he didn't snap call, but he called anyway. Oh, he had 2 pairs, so I'm not trying to get 2 pairs to fold. But I think when he didn't snap call with that one, I think our bluff was good one, but against that player at least. I mean, of course, it doesn't. Maybe he was planning to snap call, but didn't. Had some other action and so on. But yeah, I was thinking that there is decent chance that I get like Queen X to fold as well, if it's single pair. And shoving on the bottom right to put max pressure on the medium stack. Oh well. Well, I have had quite a good run recently, so I suppose we are balancing that run. But well, in reality, of course, poker doesn't have variance, doesn't have memory, so every session is new one. The bottom left we have to call not high hand plus gut shot. Well, if he double barrels, I think folding is totally fine, and I just try to check here and get to showdown. Yeah, we might get like some weak better hands to fold that are less than. Well, I could have shoved actually that one as well, probably, but less than AX to fold. But I mean, we don't want to fold. Usually turn king queen in the bluff here. If we had like queen jack, it would have been more reasonable. We would be losing to king x as well, and so on. And just going to check gold here. Yeah, I will check gold turn as well. We have some showdown value. Usually I won't get better hand to fold anyway by betting at least single street. I think I prefer checking here with 10-6, because if I bet and face check raise, it's going to be kind of awkward spot. And yeah, on the turn it can be actually kind of hard to get a weaker hand to call, but I mean we have the best hand so often that there is some merit in just protection itself, I would say. And then 9 is one hand that we just have to shove. Pretty much. And we actually won with the ace queen. Second, that was it split spot, but no, it wasn't too burst here. I think I limp with the king jack. It's kind of bad if he happens to be shoving pre-flop, but it's kind of nice hand in my opinion to mix into sometimes into like limp shove range and so on. Don't fold that one. And yeah, I can't fold queen 10 here, even if he 4x's pre-flop. It's kind of awkward to defend those ace-9 off type of hands, and I mean I was thinking a little bit about 4-betting as bluff, but I mean if you start 4-betting every sort of mediocre AX and so on, I think we are just going to be bluffing way too much. So. Well, pretty nice looking flops on both of the left tables. Just calling here and allowing him to bluff if he's firing some airball. Well, that was really lucky flop for me. On the bottom left, again, this board shouldn't be hitting much on the small blind range if he calls with sensible range, that is. That's of course often big question mark if that's the case, but well, maybe he had something anyway. And on the top right, we turned it open-ender with the pair, so I think we have to call. On the top right, we are a bit deep to be shoving, I suppose. against the cutoff open, so have to be folding. And on the top left, I will go for c-bet. We have quite a bit of protection needed for the hand, and if we check raise, we have to continue as default at least. I mean, if you have a readable but like really passive opponent and so on, then I suppose bet folding is reasonable as well. And small sizing, but our hand was pretty questionable one on the bottom left. And ace-10 suited is quite strong off. Problem with hand just tends to be that our lane range is usually quite polarized from the big blind, but maybe we can call it here. I'm not totally sure. We might be actually a bit shallow to make that call. And this is still one of the issues, like, are we now calling here to hope that we are good, or... Well, yeah, I think so. It was probably quite questionable pre-flop call, even though it's pretty decent hand in itself, but... We don't have too much protect, so let's take checking line on the bottom right and go for limp shove. So any questions, comments, whatever, feel free to ask. And obviously pocket jacks will be mandatory. Mandatory shove. This time flipping and flop is pretty much perfect. It's quite close to shove here on the bottom left. I think I will still fold, but... On the bottom right you have some argument in just checking, I suppose, but I think usually I prefer to bet, deny some of the equity, because there is quite big chance that someone will get something good when there are so many hands on the pot. And my plan is to bet on the bottom right, hope that the villain doesn't check shove here. I will be bet folding if he does. And check back river if he calls. And once again we dominate and lose. Well, these things are annoying in poker. When they happen in huge amount of time. Yep. Well, let's check on the bottom left. We have a really weak kicker. And we'll double barrel on the bottom right. Okay, well, I can't really call here. I only have such a weak draw that kind of optimistic to hope that it's alive, I suppose. Well, there is decent chance that it is, but not necessarily. And kind of tricky spot. I suppose I probably have to call if I call the turn, because every draw has missed. But of course the problem is that he was betting for four-way pot on the turn. But if I call the turn, then I don't see really way to fold here. Well, luckily he was pretty optimistic in his value bets. I don't think we have too much point in like check raising here on the top right, but he might be sometimes good with the A high as well. But after that river, it's way less likely. I think I just call with the king 10. It's kind of nice hands to have sometimes in the calling range, because you are so protected against most board runs pretty much. And I can't really value bet that river anymore. I would have probably check called. There was still decent amount of busted straight draw and such. I think we can try to bluff here, get queen x, king x to fold, because we are quite actually low on our range on this run out. Well, lucky outcome on the heads up here. Unfortunately, just €10 game, but better than nothing. Pretty deep stack on the bottom right in the three-handed, and that ace on the flop. Well, definitely not folding against that sizing. And queen was the next card we wanted. Yep. Well, I suppose we could have a like check folded on the top right also. We have decent showdown value, but not really that much playability. I will actually check here. Small blind will connect that flop quite often, and we can then try to possibly go for delayed c-bet, because we don't really have much of showdown value either. Well, I suppose this would be reasonable bluffing spot. So he will have decent amount of flushes also, but I mean, what weaker hand we can have here? Pretty much. And usually small blind range is going to be relatively strong on the upper left, so I'm not going to play that one. And I think ace-10 suited. This is one of the reasons why shoving would be somewhat reasonable as well, but I think a smaller stack we probably just have to call here. So I'm not a big fan of that call. I mean, the point in, like, you can shove, but if the villain has, or if the villains have like bigger AX or big pocket, they will be calling anyway. And hand has good postal playability, so that's why I usually prefer raising small and then making the call, unless I have some really passive reads and so on, or somewhat passive. Let's bet that one. If the spade comes on the turn, we can nicely double barrel. But at this point, I will be just giving up. Checking the flop would be fine as well. I think against 2.5 pp, 7-6 is kind of marginal one. Maybe it's still strong enough to defend. This is kind of interesting flop because if we check raise here, we'll then kind of often thinks that we might be full of shit, so to say. On the bottom right, I think we just want to be mainly checking back here. 10 is not really that great of card. Well, that wasn't a good turn on the bottom left. I will be just check folding it here. Let's just try to stab the pot. It's pretty dry one. And I will see that on the top left, if it's diamond, we can usually pretty nicely double barrel or ace or king for value. Well, interesting flop on the top right. Definitely going to bluff here. Semi-bluff. The main reason about limping with these stacks in heads up is obviously that if we mainly min raise, then 3-bet shoving against our limp start to become pretty profitable options. So by mainly limping, we make villain like re-steal possibilities way weaker. Of course, there are downsides, like we give often crappy hands equity to realize. On the bottom left, I went for check call. Nice to balance our checking range with hand like that. And it's also kind of one of the smallest kickers we can have. I think I still go for check here. Our range is going to be weaker than this, so. And it's not super clear can we get value anyway, but once we check, we kind of have to call. We are just so high on our range. And we got villain to bluff here. Obviously hands that should never be in the brief of call range once again, but yeah, people call with weird shit. And king do suited is not really hand you want to usually be calling. And pocket kings we can again go either way. Well, kind of funny again that Villain actually had Monster as well. When I decide to just play passively. I think this is, if the Villain bets, it's just spot to that we have to call. We could check raise the flop in the previous hand here, but I mean, how the fuck they have such mega hands all the time? I mean, I kind of like the call here because of the 5 that we had, that it connects with the board. It was 6-7, so that way we have some straights on these certain run outs and so on. Ace 9. Do I want to min raise and take the risk that this guy abuses? I think I just, well, I don't know. I think shoving is actually quite marginal decision here. And obviously I'm not folding queen jack here. 10-7 suited. I'm not really in the heads up. It would be call. I think I have to call it for big blind. Or 4.5 big blind. And we want a flip on the bottom left. Not great spot, I suppose, against hijack. 20 big blind deep to shove, 3-bet shove, but at the same time folding is too weak, so either shoving or calling, and if you call it's going to be mainly about set mining, so I think I kind of most often prefer just shove still, even though the risk reward is not that great. And Villain min bets. I think we can argue about raise for value/protection, but downside is that it's kind of awkward if the Villain 3-bet shove or something like that. And yeah, there are a lot of bad turn cards, so that's the kind of downside also. The way that now we have much bigger pot compared to just calling. And now we have to fold. So this has come check, check. I think I go for value bet here. This guy tries to spew his stack and accomplish that. And Jack 8 suited will be pretty close one, I suppose. This is again hand that I don't really mind either way. It's not that bad to fold either, but it's pretty rare to be like really bad to call either, because it has quite a lot of equity anyway. And let's try to limp here on the bottom left, still a hand that has decent playability. But unfortunately Villain is not folding. King 5 shove on the upper bottom right, it's going to be somewhat plus EV. It's not going to never be really hugely profitable, but somewhat profitable anyway. I'm thinking about just calling here, because this is actually kind of awkward stack depth in my opinion. Because I mean, if I 3-bet and he shoves, what is the plan? Do we stack off? Do we 3-bet fold? And on this board run out, I just have to check back this 8-7. Quite passive line, I would say, to just call with the 9s, but I suppose it's somewhat reasonable. Nine would have been nice. Against 1/4 of the bet on the top left, I probably have to call the A high, even though it's not going to improve most of the time. King 9, I think I would just open shove. If this guy min raises, I think we can shove as well, or he 3x's. Well, let's fold against that. We usually, I think the point is that, yeah, we get a bit better risk reward, but also the fold equity tends to be a lot lower. I decided to try to ISO 3-bet on the bottom right, but we can stack off here. Was a bit late from that registration. Well, let's just believe him. That was nice setup on the bottom left. And Queen 7 will be up to 8 big blind in the Nash, so let's fold. It's okay board, like if you don't have specific reads that will lane is wider than Nash, then it's totally fine to pretty much follow the Nash range if you are still against like decently aggro reggy type of player, but don't have any specific info. And I think ace-jack suited we just have to shove here. It's also second time that, or at least second time that he uses the 3x. Of course there are some good sides in the calling also that we have great hand to play from position, but I mean when he 3x's our pot odds are going to be obviously a lot worse, so it's not that great for position, because most of the time we are still going to completely miss the flop and then get into awkward situations. And nice looking turn on the top right. 9 does complete queen jack, but usually I would expect queen jack to be betting it himself on the turn, so I'm not too worried, but I don't like to shove necessarily, because his range is going to be somewhat weak usually with the line he takes, so kind of prefer to make the smaller river bet. And wouldn't mind if the button open raises, because I obviously would be snap folding 6 high, 6-3 anyway. Saying 6 high is kind of misleading, because obviously having 6-5 suited, for example, compared to 6-3 off is totally two different things. We have the aggro player on the upper right. Big blind. Does he shove? Unfortunately not. So here we have a nice suited connector, mandatory shove pretty much. And yeah, I think price is too much on the bottom right, even if we, but I mean if we complete with the 4, it's actually pretty scary. Obvious looking straight, so it's not like we necessarily have that much implied value. And we don't really know if this ace is out itself, so okay, well, on the top left we are stacking off here and flipping. Top right, I think I go for value bet. If they raise, I'm pretty happy to be folding, but we actually have a 50 euro game starting in a moment possibly. Well, I have to call against this guy here. Well, we are splitting, it seems. And again on the bottom left, nice hand to defend against the 3-bet, but flop is not really my favorite one for this hand. We get the turn, flush draw. Question is, do we want to try to bluff or just take the free? Let's just take the passive line and see if we catch something. Well, yeah, that one we probably would have gotten to fold. I mean, if we bet the turn, I don't really like the idea to bet one street. I'm usually going for 2 street bet 10, whatever I improve or not. Well, the nasty side on the bottom right is that it's kind of hard to see that many bluffs on the villain range, but I think we still have such a strong draw overall. Well, not strong enough. And that was one of the outs. And we actually got that. Oh, I was 3-betting here with the ace queen, but he 4-bets, so I will be just folding. Stacking off 70 big blind deep with ace queen would be pretty optimistic as default without any sort of maniac read. I think 10 jack is probably going to be a bit better to open shove than open fold with the fact that there is only one player covering me and the second one is only like 6-7 big blind. And on the upper right I will go for open shove if it's folded to me. And turning the nuts on the 50 euro and the villain is betting big, so we are so deep stacked here that we definitely have to just raise here pretty much. So let's go for it. Hope that he has something to stack off that is not 10-9, hopefully. But it is. Well, luckily it wasn't 10-9 of spade. That would have been something. And on the top right, villain actually still limp folds, which is pretty awesome. On the outer table, I will go for 3-bet squeezed here. Well, somewhat draw flops, so let's try to see bet it down. That doesn't work. So we are probably losing that one. Okay, aces. Well, no action for those aces at least. And totally blank, nice looking turn on the bottom right. Well, river is less so, but question is, can we get some king X to call anymore? Oh, he even has jack. I don't know, maybe I was too scared. Well, I would think that upper right will then is not limp folding anymore. So I don't really achieve much by raising. And this guy goes for shove pretty much. Well, I don't see too much point in that. Of course, he will get me often to fold, and yeah, there is some point, I suppose, but and another ace is in the €100. 100, I mean €50 game. Not quite 100. And practical notch on the upper right. Oh well, so often. I don't remember that have I got myself those. Well, I have sucked out with some AXs against pocket tens, but yeah. Well, pocket tens here I will be 3-bet stacking off if the villain shove. Pretty standard. Call 3-bet. Nope. Obviously no point in betting here on the top left. And bottom left I will be definitely 3-bet shoving that next, almost always pretty much. Unfortunately running into big hand. And on the bottom right I will go for like thin value/slash protection. We actually have this J-Doc calling matching guy. Yeah, I think I just check, and if he bets big, we can definitely fold. It's not against that sizing. Well, still had quite a few outs. And top set, but it's relatively drawy board, so I'm not going to be slow playing it. Especially from big blind trains can have a lot of stuff here on the again, this guy don't make these c-bets. Well, that is actually kind of reasonable turn card, I suppose. Let's try to, because his range is going to be so wide. So let's try to get some 7 or 5x to fold, hopefully. Hopefully. Well, that was one nasty run out on the top left. Well, seems like we get another 50 euro. Started. So many outs. Probably. Of course, it's possible that he has like full house here. Well, let's try to step. Simple limp and step line. Well, hopefully these guys collide. We get cut shot on the bottom left, and at least villain line looks big, and we actually get nuts on the river. Not no action. Well, it seems like they didn't stack off at least. Well, unfortunately he had the ace jack here. Oh well, I think I just check here and hope my 6 is good. We might be ahead some ace 5 or something. Or 10-9 I suppose. Pretty questionable looking flop call. Well, I think my ace jack is a bit too good to be just check folded on the top right. But obviously if he continues betting we can give up. Well, I see bet both of them go all in. If this guy only went all in, I have to fold. But against both of them, I have so much equity that I can stack off with my nut flush draw. And luckily they don't have set here, so board pair is fine. Kind of funny that the caller guy only had open-ended straight draw and he calls in that situation. Well, lucky for me, because I couldn't be calling against a single opponent with my draw. How the heck didn't they stack off here? Like what the fucking... Oh, I think he did pretty much double up, I suppose. Well, not quite, for some weird reason he's not shoving the river. Oh well. Funky play syndrome, I suppose. Well, I could have gone for non all in here. Oh well. Unfortunately, just Bubble Boy in the €50. Well, that was unfortunate. Going to happen pretty rarely. I think there is some merit in leading here with the top pair. We want to protect our equity. Well, a lot of 3-bet shoving. Well, reasonable hand, 9-10 shooter, pretty nice. Pretty nice hand for that. I think I call with the A-high with my backdoor not flush draw. And let's try to turn into bluff. I mean, I pretty much can't have weaker than that. But this guy doesn't fold, it seems. Snap calls with, was it third or fourth pair or something? Third pair. The upper right I will be shoving, and let's hope that he folds. Or if he doesn't, that we are flipping. Well, now it's basically, the risk reward is just so huge. Like, if we get both of them to fold, we are getting almost 50% to our stack. And we are flipping, which is not such a bad thing. Lucky for me, he didn't 3-bet shove overall. Yeah, I think I just shove here. We can call as well. I think both of options are fine. Yeah, this is not good spot in general, because when the middle stack raise, he's usually having pretty strong range in this situation, and we probably don't have much, if any, fold equity. And in the outside table 50 euro, we actually have the notch on the flop. Let's see if we get any action. This guy min donk betting. Well, at least he calls. And again, this guy is min raising. You know that this guy is decently aggressive, at least he made that 10-9 shooter re-steal, which is not necessarily totally standard stuff for most people. Well, yeah, I will go for min raise. 7-8 is actually absolute bottom. I would shove it here. And I don't think I want to 3-bet against this guy. I don't think he's the type of player that is really going to be folding. It's not really value 3-bet. Yeah. 9-8 winning would have been much better. Much better. So do we want to raise or call here? Let's go for the raise, and bottom left mandatory shove pretty much. And set up once again. And this guy calls again. I probably can't value bet anymore. Well, ace-10 shooter is mandatory call, and we are flipping and winning this time. One better kicker. Oh well. Yeah, can't really fold once we get improved to trips, as decreases the chances that he has one. The outside table, I min raised this min bet c-bet after raising this guy min raises. I just decided to 3-bet shove with those stack debts. Have such a strong draw. Let's try if this guy manages to fold. I think I haven't raised much against him. Not the bottom right. I think this guy is pretty wrecky, so this should be definitely in the Nash range. Or at least from what I have, from the little we have seen, he seems somewhat wrecky. I think this one I will go with the open shove. We have to stack off against the big blind anyway, so let's put the max pressure on the medium stack. Well, 9 is good. Some run good. And it seems like these guys stack off king jack. Jesus. Wow. Solid stuff. Solid stuff. And we have the straight here. I wouldn't actually assume a huge amount of fold equity in general, but he does fold. Two pairs here. I think I just check and try to get, hope that he bets. But that doesn't happen, so let's bet ourselves. And decided to limp here. We can have some limping hands, like some 7-5 off, for example. It's not going to be plus EV shove, but... And crappiest pretty much card on the deck on the upper left. We can't obviously value bet anymore, and yeah, I think we have to fold probably. Do I want to get involved with this guy? Well, let's go for it. Quite nice stack distribution in a way. Well, he is pretty deep, so he can put a lot of pressure on me as well, of course, but... Here we have pair plus gutshot, so no way I'm going to fold against half pot bet. It might be sometimes good. Well, wow, that was very, very careful play. I mean, two paired here. Well, I think we just want to shove it here on the bottom left. It's pretty rare that both of them are going to fold. But does that actually happen here? Nope. Well, that hand obviously won't be folding. It's very common when they go for that sort of play that they will be calling some pretty questionable stuff as well. And pretty standard call on the bottom left with the gutshot, but obviously if he continues with flush draw completing card, we can be pretty happy to fold overall. And on the heads up, only having weak flush draw, I will just fold right away. On the bottom right, I could have actually completed with the king, but it's not bad to fold either overall. And dominating but losing. Yeah, I think I probably start to end the session soon. We have some berry gathering on tomorrow if the weather is nice. So I actually wrote about that on my poker strategy blog as well. Well, this guy just never folds his button pretty much. It's like always calling. I could just call, but I just don't like the fact that if I call complete here, it's such a great spot for the big blind to be shoving pretty wide, and I can't really call at that. But if he shoves here, I just have to call because of the pot odds. But well, hopefully we don't lose this one. Looking good so far. That was one big spew. One big spew. Well, of course, I really rarely have hands to call here, but I mean, shoving 30 big blind. It's just something you don't pretty much do as open shove. unfortunately lost that flip, so now we are much more chances for that game to turn around. Blinds went up, so I just tried to limp it here, but unfortunately he shoves, and on the bottom right I don't usually like to bet here because it's really tough to get like villain to stack off, which of course he might be calling with some draws, but well, now we are actually hoping that he would have the 10x. Sudden change of mind. Looking good. He might be bluffing, of course, with a lot of stuff, but let's hope that he has that. But he doesn't. Unfortunately, no shove on the top left this time against my limp. Let's go for light raise. So one time he doesn't shove so far. I would have the nuts, but 2 times I have weaker stuff. He shoves. Quite convenient. It's funny sometimes when that kind of stuff repeats over and over. I sometimes have like, I remember one time I had like, I think pretty much 10 times I limped or close to that, and I had like 4 times hands that I was inducing. Villain didn't shove one time, and other 6 times Villain was shoving every time. It was kind of frustrating. I will actually go for value here. I would be betting probably 7x as well, some 10x at least. That I wouldn't necessarily bet on the turn. Well, okay, that is enough. That is enough. Wow. Seems like we have big whale tiers because this sort of line doesn't make any sense with any hand pretty much. A bit unnecessarily big c-bet here. I hate these situations because I think these sort of crappy AXs are not that great. I don't mind calling overall, but it's going to be pretty thin most of the time. And in some cases it's going to be pretty horrible if the villain happens to be one type that he doesn't really do that without having a decent ace or pocket pair. Then we are going to be totally screwed. Pretty much. Spade would have been nice. And when you get the hand, then fold. Annoying opponents. Random shoving that happens to not come on the good timing. What size bet? Well, I think I kind of probably have to call. Actually, kind of awkward spot on the bottom left. So we are kind of deep that I would want to shove. I think I flatted here, but not that great spot. Obviously, flopping this set is more often good. I'm actually thinking about check raising here. We have kind of nice blocker for it at least. Well, we probably got pretty much maximum from that pocket edge. I think this guy might make this sort of play with a lot of king X type of hands as well, so I think I will just shove, hope that he doesn't happen to have better one. And now he doesn't, so well, that wasn't as good flop as you would have talked. Well, what happens if I'm in race? Oh, Jesus, what setup? 3-3 or what? 4-4 king and flopping the trips. I think I have to call the ace-9. It's a bit too strong to be folded, I think. But it's pretty marginal one. Pretty much any weaker I would have folded. Kind of almost here on the bottom left, but not quite. Double gut shot. basically on the top left, like blocking the top pair is much less relevant in general in the heads up, because you are going to get action from so many other stuff as well, usually. Well, that was nice one on the top left. So yeah, I think I played these games running to the end, and 10 end session. 10 8 shooter, definitely just shoving with that stack depth. Kind of interesting, he shoves, so I can't really do anything. I think there would be some merit in just shoving the turn as well. But I mean, I have some showdown value also. And I don't know if we really get any like value sort of hand to fold anyway. Usually, so. Well, this seems like pretty fishy looking. Open raise on the top right. Or somewhat fishy, I suppose. I mean, it's like almost 3 big blind. And once again a high flop. Well, we are only one pot size bet deep, so I'm not folding here. I would have checked back though if the villain checks, but I'm not folding here. They can turn up with enough weaker stuff. Well, he was fishy, but unfortunately lucky fish. Unfortunately lucky fish. Bet. Yeah. Even donk betting the a6 on the flop like it would be some sort of nuts, basically. Villain check, so yeah, he can have some of the king x's, but I would imagine that he has a lot more like a high type of hands in general. So we get most of his range in awkward spot here by betting. Of course we have some showdown value with the queen jack, but I don't mind betting. How is the session result so far? Well, I actually don't have the Excel opened. Don't remember my starting stack bankroll. Oh, doesn't matter. We can check it. At the end of the session. Min 3 betting. Well, we have quite a crappy hand, but I'm not folding with that price anyway. But we can pretty much give up on this flop. Right away, chances we might be good, but yeah, we can't really stack off anyway. And even if we are good, there is a lot of equity for the villain anyway, so Well, on the top right we can't really set mine, but I think we can still call here. We can continue on some flops against c-bets and so on. Well, that wasn't quite total blank. I mean, we are beating most of his like semi-bluffing hands here with the king 9, not blocking most of them. That was pretty optimistic shove with the deuce jack. With the cutoff seemingly sitting out, I was going to open raise, not my standard open raise though. That's kind of annoying side of this site, that it doesn't update the sit out info before you act. Well, flop is pretty nice anyway. Once again he min 3-bets when I open raise. Oh, Jesus. Yeah, obviously min 3-betting is something you shouldn't be doing pretty much ever in normal situations. Pre-flop at least. Pre-flop at least. Oh, well, I was the one that was planning to shove on the top left, but I don't know. It might be okay to call still. Of course, this guy might be sometimes trapping also. I don't know. I think it's really close overall. Two bigger pairs on the board. Yep. Queen 9, what the Nash says, it's up to 11.7 big blind, so actually once again one of those whatever situations as default. Quite a miracle if we win on the top left, if there is no ace or queen at least. Well, especially after that bet. But he was actually bluffing. Nice. Nice. Not gonna fold with that price on the bottom left. Oh, well. Well, I really appreciate that timing for huge shock out. €50 flip on the heads up. 160 euro. Yeah. 5-6 shooter. I don't actually mind either way. Like, at least in the Nash it's going to be, and I mean, even if the villain calls like ace-10, we have 40% equity, so limping is totally fine, obviously, as well, but and we want that one as well. So at least we are on profit. I'm not sure how much, but we have some poker flips promotion going on. Let's actually use these. So basically you need to win like random flips. I would imagine these were random flips, and I don't know if we have this. Do we have the quitting possibility? Yeah, we can collect the reward after every flip if we want. But this is actually a promotion that has given me most rewards so far. With the bigger, I think silver flips, I have gotten some, like a couple times 40 euro. I have usually quit at that point, because at least earlier there was like 40 euro cash, and after that it was 100 euro MTT ticket, and basically I've been quite happy to just take the cash here. I'm just going to fold this Jack 4. We are probably not going to be in that great of shape. Well, we can beat some king high probably, but not much else. Well, there was busted draw possibility. Do we get anything? The greatest looking flop. And yeah, that 2000 euro package, I think it would require like 7 flip 1 win in a row or something like that, so that's quite small possibility, even if this is not, even if it's fair flip. I don't know if it is, but of course they might have rigged it somewhat, for example, if they have wanted. But I mean, if you calculate that one flip 50%, then 25%, 2, 3 is going to be 12.5%, then for 6.25%, 5 is going to be like 3.1%, then 6 all in is 1.5%, 7 all in is going to be 0.75%, so like 8 all in, 8 wins in a row would be like 0.3% or so. So it's not that likely outcome. I don't know if there was, can't, seems like you can see how many steps there are. This guy is again sitting out, but he's probably not really sitting out. So I'm not going to open king 8. 400 bonus points. So next one would be Hexa Pro ticket. Well, we are dominating at least. On the table, it's going to be check call unless the lane goes for some huge sizing. And kind of interesting turn card. So now we would have 20 euro worth of bonus points. Doesn't look too good though. But we won. So I will flip one more time. Let's see if we get into 40 euro or drop out. Well, we got 40 euro. I think I'm happy with this one. It would be Supernova MTT ticket next, and I think after that it was, I think, 200 euro. Of course, in a way, you kind of want to take this because it's 2.5x the value for the next flip, but as I'm not really that interested about that MTT ticket, I think I just prefer this 40 euro. Somehow we evaded the mighty Gatsot. Well, let's go with this one. Try to go with these last ones at least to 200 euro if possible. Most likely not gonna happen, but miracles might happen. And we only have 3 attempts at this point. In the table, I'm not going to raise Jack 10, doesn't make too much sense as default. Of course, against some people it might be plus EV anyway, but not really hand you want to turn into bluff, basically. Ace 8, we can go for raise fold. I will fold against the big blind as well. Well, pretty happy with 40 bucks or euros. I think I just shove this ace deuce. Basically, raise small is the last thing you want to be doing, because you can't be raise calling, and raise folding would be quite a disaster. Well, the good thing about this hand is that even if the villain has queens, we still have like 30% equity. But that didn't help this time. So yeah, let's check that. My result Excel. So we made like 130 euros roughly from the games, and plus that 40 euro from the promotion. So not too bad, I would say. Overall. But yeah, this is going to be the end of the session. As I said, I will probably in next few days, or at least on the next week, if not before, do that PT4 tutorial. So if you have any any sort of tutorial you would want to maybe on some other aspect of the PT4 outside of positional reports, or maybe some poker tool, or just about studying certain situation or whatever, I can think about different kind of tutorial videos if there is demand for those. But yeah, not sure when the next stream will be, but I will inform about it later. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.